Okay, so picking up right where we left off, just one minor thing I forgot to do at the end of the last video, and that is we had the tag to indicate that this is the beginning of the form. I neglected to put the other tag, the bookend, as I called them, to indicate that that's the end of the form section. So this is the portion of the tutorial where we get into the actual PHP. So let's indicate that we are using PHP. And then so I don't make the same mistake that I did a couple minutes ago, we will close it off to begin with. So far what we have are several input fields. And what we want to do is we want to take the values that are put into those fields and store them into variables. So we have 3 fields, so we're going to create 3 variables. Those variables will then have those values saved to the external text file. So let's paste this first one here and then we'll walk through it. So $var1. So the $sign indicates that this is a variable, and you can call this whatever you want. Equal sign, $sign, underscore. So remember that's the hyphen holding the shift key. Post, we said we're using the post method. Open square bracket, single quote, book name. This must match this. If you change anything about it, PHP won't realize that you're talking about this. So you need to use this exact spelling so as that PHP knows that the value that is put into this field will be stored into a variable. Now the single quote, closed square bracket, and then a semicolon. For those of you familiar with C#, you'll recognize that there is a similar way of ending a command in C#. And now it's just rinse and repeat. So make sure you make all the necessary changes too. So var2, so again, $sign to indicate it's a variable, the name of the variable, the equal sign, $sign underscore post, again, it's there because we're using the post method, open square bracket, single quote, and then the name of the field. This one is book author. Another single quote, closed square bracket, and then the semicolon again to terminate the line, to end the line. And then again, we said we want 3 because we have 3 variables. Well, we have 3 fields, each needing their own variable. And this is book cover. So make sure it matches book name, book author, book cover. And I don't think I clarified that when I said book cover, I was referring to hardcover or soft cover. So now we need to issue the command that will write to the text file. I'm just going to paste it, but I'll walk you through all the steps. So first, again, we're creating a variable. We'll call it file handle because we're referencing a file. Is equal to fopen. So this is the actual command that we're going to open a file. Parenthesis, double quote, the name of the file. So this is the file that is going to be looked for in the same location as this. So the same folder that you have this document in, that's where this is going to be. Another quote, comma, single quote, single quote, letter A, single quote. What does this mean? This means append. So there's a couple different operators you could use here. You could use a W for write. The problem with write is that it will overwrite the record, and we really don't want to do that. We want a running tally. So you want to append. So W is one option, A is another. So we want to append. That's between single quotes, parenthesis, and again, terminating the line with semicolon. So now we need to declare what we're going to write. We declared where we're going to write and how we're going to write. Now we have to say what we're going to write. So fwrite, so you can see the similar naming convention. This was fopen, so file open. This is file write. So what and how we're going to write is embedded in here because that's what we said with file handle. So all this is getting transferred here because of file handle. So it's not a coincidence. This is exactly this. That's what you've done. You've taken these instructions and you've put it into a variable, and then the variable is here. So this is where we're going to write. This is how we're going to write. This is what we're going to write. We're going to write a variable. And actually, we have 3 variables. Now, just like with the page itself, if you don't put in any separators or you don't put in a break, then it doesn't show up automatically. So what would happen is if I did var1 and then say did another statement for var2, and again, this isn't what we're going to use. I'm just making an example. In var3, what would happen is the 3 values would be listed consecutive on the same line without any separators. Well, that's a problem. We want separators. We want some way to delimitate between one value and another. So Excel as well as Access has different delimiters that it recognizes. So we'll just use one of those. So let's get rid of this and then we'll put in the actual code. So now we'll paste this in and you'll see why I wanted to show you the simplified version first. Yes, it's a lot to look at, but we'll break it down. So you already saw this, fwrite, you saw the file handle, and you saw var1. Great. So what's the period? The period means that you're adding something to this. I don't know why they didn't use a plus sign. I don't know why they didn't use an ampersand. Those are pretty common to do what's known as concatenating, and that is you're creating a larger value. But for whatever reason, they just use a dot. Okay. So if you want to use a single write command to add multiple values, you separate those values with the dot. In this case, we're going to use a comma. Why? Because we just mentioned about how Excel and Access can recognize a comma as a delimiter. So if you think of CSV, comma separated value, that's what it's referring to. So the first value, in this case, it's a variable, because it could be a string. It doesn't have to be a variable. A dot to indicate that you're writing something else. Quotes with a comma. So in other words, you literally want a comma to be written to the file. There's that dot again, indicating that we want to write more. And now at this point, it's kind of rinse and repeat within the command, because now it's variable 2, dot, double quote, comma, quote. So this is really identical to this as far as functionality, and it's separated by the dot. So again, it's the variable, the dot, the semicolon, dot, variable, dot, semicolon, dot, and here's a third variable, but this is where it gets a little bit different. The dot, and in this case, we want a line break. So this is how you indicate a line break in a web page. This is how you indicate a line break in text. Because again, everything here would work out okay, except at the end here, because now we want another line to indicate it's a new record. So like I said, I didn't want to put that on the screen at first until I explained the simpler part. So hopefully that is a good explanation. If not, just let me know and I can break it down a little bit more. And just a little bit more housekeeping, and then we'll be done with the coding portion of this series, and then we'll move on to the access portion. So just 2 commands left. Fclose. So just as we open the file, we wrote to the file, we're going to close the file. And then we're going to echo, and this is kind of like just a print command. It's saying print this on the screen. So record added. So basically you're just indicating to the user that when they clicked on the button, the record has been added. So that should do it for the PHP and HTML portion of this. We shouldn't have to do any more with this record. And what's going to happen is we're going to run this next, and then you'll see how the data is being saved to the file. And then, as I said, the remainder of this series will be working with Access to take in that file in a timely and streamlined manner, some kind of automated manner, so you don't have someone sitting there clicking on a button. Now, it's possible you may want that. It's possible that for this type of system, you may be using this for when real time isn't necessary. So maybe you have someone in the field with a tablet and they're doing some data entry of something that they've either taken in or they observed. And now that their day is done, in Access, you would then do a single import of that file. So that certainly is one application of this. So let's go back over to our web page. Book name will be Frankenstein. Book author, Mary Shelley. And book cover type, we'll say it's hardcover. And then we add record. So what we're now going to do is we're now going to go over to the folder that's in the document root, and we should now see that new text file with that entry. So we'll go to our folder. We'll go, and here it is. So here's the php data file.txt, php data file.txt. Now we'll open it up, and sure enough, Frankenstein, Mary Shelley, hardcover. Absolutely perfect. That's exactly what we wanted, because now you've effectively created a CSV, a comma separated value file. And so this would now be able to be imported into Excel and imported into Access. So I think we're going to end there for this tutorial. Like I said, what we're going to really look at next will be the Access portion of it, and we'll look at a few different possibilities. One possibility, as I mentioned, is maybe you want data to be entered as a batch, so that this queuing up the data into an external file is absolutely fine, because maybe you only want to do one synchronization per day, or maybe you want it to be taken in every minute or every 5 minutes. We'll look at a few options and how to automate that again, so you don't have someone sitting there pressing a button 200 times a day, because this wouldn't be a viable solution if that's what you had to do. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Leave a comment for the question. If you want to see more, please leave a like, because sometimes these tutorials, I really have no idea how much interest is in them until like 6 months down the line and someone says, hey, why'd you stop? So if you really like the video, please do a thumbs up, and that way I'll know to continue. Okay, so I hope this was helpful.